Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another show. It's been a while since I've been on the TV airwaves, and happy to have two folks from St. Albans Town with us today. Carrie Johnson, the former St. Albans Town Manager. Kind of sounds weird to throw that adjective out there. And Sean Atkins, Carrie's successor as Town Manager. Good to see you folks. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having us.
So is this, are you still consulting with the town, or are you officially out of there, Carrie? What's your status right now?
Mostly out, but technically I'm still working through this Thursday. So.
Oh, is that right? So and I should know, we're taping this show on Tuesday, August 29. It's a poor sunshine state, which we talked about off the air, is bracing for Hurricane Idalia. At least we'll get my son's name is Ian. At least it'll get him maybe in the background a little bit after Hurricane Ian decimated parts of Florida. But anyway, so you're just about officially out of there.
I am. I've been working on a few projects that had lingered sometimes. Well, there's always projects that linger longer than you want them to, but I'm trying to finish them out. So Sean doesn't have to worry about them.
Yeah, I trust if Sean calls you up, which I would just guess you just might once in a while, you'll still pick up the phone, I hope.
Absolutely.
Block the number.
Yeah. No, not at all. We have to commiserate with each other. It can be good.
So is this a real retirement? What's up in the future for Carrie?
That's a fair question. Not really. I didn't want to work full time, but I wanted to maybe do some consulting work 2 or 3 days a week. Yeah. But just not 60, 50 hours in 1 week, and maybe a little bit less responsibility. But I'm in some informal conversations with VLCT, the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, just to help out towns if they need project management. So
I think, as I recall, didn't Dominic Cloud long ago talk about a long-time manager? Didn't he come out of VLCT?
He did.
When the city hired him, I think, going back. We're talking about maybe like even a longer tenure than yours. I think
it was around when I was in Georgia, so back in like say 2005-ish, I think.
Boy, that's a long tenure.
Yeah, and so towns occasionally have changeovers when they're not planning it. Sometimes someone gets sick, so I told them that I would be willing to do that on a short-term basis.
Yeah. Sean, you officially took over July 1st, or am I off on?
Yeah.
July 1st.
Started June 5th, but then officially took the deputy, I think, is what they had on my title for a bit. So,
boy, so you've been on board for getting close to three months or so, huh?
Yeah.
You feeling pretty comfortable in the job? How you faring?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's I love this work. The biggest learning curve for me is not just focusing on economic development projects. So dealing with the fun day-to-day things that pop up, I guess. And I'm smiling just because some of the things I just won't say on air. But it's been good. It's been good. She's been very welcoming since day one, and it's been very helpful, especially because losing that kind of institutional knowledge is probably the biggest.
Sure, that's tremendously helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll kind of go back and forth between what's going on in the town and looking back on Carrie's tenure. So how many years as St. Albans Town Manager?
11, actually.
Double digits, 11?
Yeah.
Well, you easily, years ago, you broke Jim Fitzgerald's record. Jim Fitz used to have the record for a while, but you smashed that many years ago. Did you have a feel when you got the job how long you'd be in it, or is that always been probably a little hard to say?
It was hard to say. I mean, I certainly intended to be there a little while. In our ethics code, the Vermont City Manager Association has an ethics code, and so does the national organization ICMA. But it takes a couple years to really get to know your community, because there's just this wide. We're generalists, right? We're not specialized in stormwater or even DPW. We have to know a little bit about a lot of different things. So it takes a while to reach some of those cyclical milestones, just like the budget, which is starting now. So, and it depends. The select board changes, as you know, and we've talked about. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's more and less support for the manager. So I'm going to say it out loud because I'm in that position that it can be tenuous sometimes. Good managers leave towns not because of any fault of their own, just they are not as beloved at that moment by the elected body.
Yeah, and again,
So-
you've been through, as you kind of know, a number of select boards.
I
and
have.
Seems like I would hear an occasional rumbling that, yeah, your tenure might have been slightly tenuous, although I think for the majority of the time that wasn't the case, but I'm sure there
Correct.
were probably some moments there. Anyway, but
You can't please all the people all the
Sure.
time, and unfortunately, I think sometimes managers have a life cycle, and
Yeah.
I think it's great right now to move on to Sean. He's got fresh ideas. He's younger.
yeah,
Not that I, I think we can utilize a lot of different age groups now with the labor shortage. I think it's a good idea. It's a good, peaceful transition. We do help each other out, and also both of us have had the opportunity to work with Al Vogel, who also has decades worth of management experience.
including former town manager, and I loved Al. Wasn't
Yeah.
Al interim? He's going to hang around for maybe half a year, and was there for several years. Actually,
Yeah.
maybe, anyway,
Different
several years.
capacities. I mean, when
Right.
I had Corey Parent there as an assistant manager,
Yeah.
that was very useful. But when he left,
Yeah.
Al kind of stepped up again and said, "I'll
Yeah,
help you if you need to. Say you're out of town or
yeah.
So he's been very helpful.
Yeah, as I said before, I would have bet my life. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. The Corey Parent would have been your successor. Shows you what I know.
Yeah.
That sounds like Corey's faring pretty well.
I think he's doing okay.
Yeah.
In fact, is he still, as the town, is he? I guess he's with. Is it Leona? Is he with
Leona.
another? Are they doing some stuff for the town, Sean? Are they any connection with the town?
They had. When I first came in, I think they were coming up to the end of their
Yeah.
initial contract. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually pretty close with Corey. He's part of the town kind of used his firm to lead
Yeah.
the recruitment process. So I'm
Huh.
pretty close with him. So it's whether it's official or not, he's still
Yeah,
giving some help.
I'm sure another very good source of
Yeah,
information.
excellent.
Is
Yeah.
Al Vogel still doing stuff for the town? He was operations?
He's still the interim director
Still
of
interim.
operations. Yeah.
Are you looking for a permanent replacement for him? Will that job be filled on a permanent basis?
Yeah, yep. And we had kind of looked into doing a CFO, assistant town manager
Huh.
position that we actually had open for a little bit, but
Really?
we kind of pumped the brakes on that, and we're going to really reassess what, we want that position to be, a legitimately a long-term fit, I should say. So
Yeah.
I love Al, and I'd take him for many years in a heartbeat, but he's I think he's ready to take a step back
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
So
No, it sounds like he's been a very important person for the town.
he's been like a mentor to me personally. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's been great.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I know, as I recall, Al certainly made a point about thinking that the town needed to get younger. No offense to
Absolutely.
Carrier, but
No, it's true.
I know with some of the select board races,
Mhm.
he's been a strong proponent of getting some younger blood in there.
And on all our boards,
Yeah.
volunteer boards, trying to
Mhm.
find
Yeah.
new ways to recruit.
How are you doing? Have you got enough people? I mean, you hear about just staffing shortages. Have you got all the volunteers you need for your boards, or?
I will likely never say yes, but we're okay right now.
Pretty good chance.
Yeah, pretty good.
And we have a good mix, I think, of across the demographics on our boards. Like DRB has a mix of male, female, age groups,
Yeah.
backgrounds. Planning Commission, same. We have a very,
diverse.
very strong
Mhm.
planning commission right now.
Huh.
So it's good, but we can always use a few more. And we usually start recruiting in the fall and maybe spring, because we do our appointments usually right after town meeting day.
Right.
So-
Interesting. So about 11 years as town manager.
Yes,
And again, and before that, were you town administrator in Georgia?
I was.
For
Yep.
how many years?
Almost 9 years.
Oh, really? Boy.
Yeah,
So 20, that's a
know,
lot
in a
of
blink.
years.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did the job change a lot over the years, Carrie, or not hugely? Something tells me it probably got a little more complicated, but was there kind of an evolution of the job, or?
I think it did evolve. I mean, my job description didn't technically change,
Yeah.
but along with the support of the select board, we, in the last 2 years, started restructuring the town,
Huh.
specifically to address possibly some labor shortages, but we changed the framework to accommodate maybe more directors, so there's fewer direct reports to the town manager, and giving those directors more latitude to work with employees in their departments. So we started with things like DPW,
Huh.
Department of Public Works, Now, Director Dave Allerton oversees stormwater and the road maintenance, winter maintenance included, and stormwater. So that is one department.
Sounds like, I guess we could maybe get into stormwater. Sounds like that's become a pretty sticky issue.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah.
That is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the
But
other.
we can get back into that
Yeah,
later.
we absolutely can, because we
Yeah.
could talk an hour at least
Wow.
about stormwater.
Really?
Yeah. And we also changed or I would call it land, well, actually, I just forgot what it was called.
The lister?
Community development,
Oh.
that's what we're calling it.
Yeah.
So we have a director who oversees planning and zoning, assessing,
Huh.
and was there another one, or was that's enough?
That's most of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's most of it. So that person can oversee those departments, and the one that we have not touched yet, due to frankly time constraints, was public safety.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in
Yeah.
fact, that's another issue coming up. Bob Cross, I just knew this when I read your town report, but Bob is still looking to apparently step down by the end of the year as, public safety director and fire chief?
Well, he's public safety administrator.
Public safety administrator.
We haven't even drafted a job description for that
Yeah.
public safety director yet.
Yeah.
And we thought it perhaps wasn't the best time to do it right before the town transitions to the city PD.
Oh, right.
Changing the police advisory board as well, participants, and there's just a lot of change coming in the next 10 months that.
So you might not look for another person in that position, or at least right away, or?
Yeah, probably not right away
Yeah.
until, because we also have the joint police board as
Right.
a result of that agreement. So
Right.
there's going to be enough kind of significant changes in the public safety
Yeah.
spectrum for us to just kind of wait on that.
Well, you're certainly touching on one of the most significant things I would say that happened during your tenure. What I
Mhm.
think is extremely accurately billed as the historic agreement between the city and town on the
Yeah.
police coverage issue and wastewater.
Yeah.
So.
Yes,
does
you
that-
and I talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we probably talked about that about.
Yeah.
Probably annually.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just the battle between the city and town. I wish I had kept track, or maybe I'm glad I didn't,
Yeah.
of just the money that the city and town spent on just lawyers, on
Yeah.
litigation. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's in seven figures even, but it was a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think it was that much. I mean, I guess what was more debilitating was the amount of time that
Sure.
it took from what we really needed to do. So both
Yeah.
the city and the town had a lot of smaller battles.
Yeah.
And the bigger war here is what we put to bed. But,
Yeah. Did you see that? Did you see that coming? I know a number of people. I know Jack Brigham, a select board member.
Yeah.
I think Jack played a key role in that. But did you see that coming after years of hassling and litigating about that, or? did
I
that
wish
kinda-
I could say my crystal ball was
Yeah.
clear
Rosy.
that day, but
Huh.
I remember talking to Jack, and he was very pragmatic, along with Brian, and it was.
Yeah.
I was a little frustrated at first because we've taken so many runs at it,
Sure.
and it took time from other things. I'm sure Sean is still learning this, but we triage our time every day. You just have to decide what you're going to
Sure.
spend your time on. And I thought, we've tried this before and it hasn't worked, but it was so important. We all made time to do it,
Yeah.
and it worked. And it kept feeling like it was right. It felt good this time. I would say once we started meeting with the city, Dominic and Tim, it was obvious that it felt right, and the
Wow.
agreement seemed like it would work.
Wow.
I mean, we got it done in 6 months,
Really.
and
Well,
nothing.
you did a good job keeping that quiet.
Yeah,
too.
nothing in town government, or it rarely
Yeah.
gets resolved in that amount of time.
Yeah.
So, the agreement was kept fairly simple. The need was there, driven probably by the fact that labor shortage is exacerbating all of our issues, right?
Yeah.
So, it seemed like the right time, right people were involved.
Yeah.
It's one of the most
Yeah.
creative public agreements I've met. Now I'm a part of it. I wasn't a part of its
Right.
negotiations or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I kind of always say, I know I'm not 85 years old, but I have worked in a decent amount of localities,
Yeah.
and I haven't quite seen an agreement like this.
Yeah.
That's
No, the reference historic agreement, I thought that was absolutely not understated at all. I mean, I've been dealing with that issue for about half a century, it seems like, around here. No, that was big news. Any cracks? Is that still holding up? Of course, the
Yeah.
police
Yeah.
coverage changes, of course, next July 1st.
It does.
Sheriff's Department down to its last, 10 months or so?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any cracks.
Yeah.
It still
No.
feels
And I
like.
guess the affiliation fee was halved as of July 1st,
Yep,
folks.
for this year.
Right.
In the town
Yep.
paying for the affiliation fee, which the town, of course, is so happy to be dealing with. I'm kidding. Anyway, so that seems
Right.
like that's, and so again, police advisory, you've got some work to do on that.
Well, and it's actually a separate board.
Separate board.
Within the agreement, there's already the police advisory committee, but there's
Okay.
also a new joint police board.
Joint police
the-
board.
The JPB, I guess, would be
Huh.
the acronym for that.
So half city, how many people
Mhm.
on that?
Yeah, I thought it was 6. I believe 3 from the town, 3 from
Mhm.
the city,
Okay.
and then and me and Dom are together. Will I guess oversee or the police chief evaluation and hiring, potential hiring later on.
So that's not
And budget's the big
Right.
thing for the JPB. I
Right.
feel weird calling it the JPB, but
The JPB,
the
I'll have to get used to that.
It has a different feel to it.
It does.
So,
It
but
does.
JPB, that's
but-
not in place now, though? This is in the future, or is it
it's in the works right now.
in the
Right.
works now?
Yeah,
Because it's a joint board,
yeah,
equally represented.
and largely focused on the budget
Huh.
for the police. So
Interesting.
right now we're in the process of appointing R3. So
Yeah. Sheriff's Department's still doing okay? I mean, it sounds like the town had no beef with the sheriff. Sounds like when before this came up, it just
Mhm.
sounds like when the town gave the Sheriff's Department the contract, which was big news at the time,
Mhm.
sounds like that was pretty much a money issue. It just felt like he had a better deal money-wise in sticking with the
Mhm.
city at that point. But
That's
Sheriff's
fair.
Department's still doing okay. I mean, I'm sure they probably have some labor issues, but
Mhm.
Sheriff's Department's still doing okay in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't
And
talked
Sean,
with
I guess.
John.
yeah, I've still been meeting with
yeah.
John.
Yeah.
We've actually already kind of started the shared process, I guess, because
Yeah.
of the labor shortages with the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of making the transition. By the time we get to the summer, or July next year, it's going to be, knock on wood, a smooth transition.
Yeah.
Because they're already kind of pulling with the Vermont. I did that again.
I
Yeah.
know.
Vermont State Police in the city, just to make sure everybody's covered. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've talked to the sheriff a few times, and I almost think, I'm not sure he totally, maybe didn't disagree at all, but I'm saying, boy, maybe as much of a blow as it probably seemed to be for the Sheriff's Department to lose the contract for the town, given labor shortage, maybe it'll make life a little easier for the department.
Mhm.
And they certainly hope to pick up more towns and stuff. I think there are towns who would love to get some contracts. And of course, the cities just came through Highgate a couple times this morning. Didn't see any city PD, but they've got Highgate now for another
Mhm.
year. But I don't think they're going to go past this year, and you might know that. But anyway, but hopefully the Sheriff's Department will get some more business out there.
Yeah.
I believe it's their intention to, they've already notified
I
Highgate.
think I've been told that
They're
by
not going to
the mayor.
patrol once they start
Yeah.
patrolling for us, the city people.
Yeah, I think I've been
Yeah.
told that too. Wow, so some big changes. On the water wastewater, the town has been giving at least some look to maybe a wastewater facility down in the Bay Area, Carrie or
Mhm.
Sean.
Yeah.
Is that still getting some attention?
It is, yeah. We're actually right now, it's kind of been spoken about that there's a study already out, but it's about to begin, a study. So really across the board feasibility study for the Bay, the potential extension. There's even some word, potential decentralized system. Because really taking away the affiliation fee, which I'm glad I came when I did, so I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Because a big hindrance to
How
development.
many people in the town are paying roughly the affiliation fee? It's not a ton. It's not a ton of people.
It's not a
is it?
ton. I thought it was less than 100.
Oh yeah,
I mean, obviously, it's going to increase every year.
yeah,
If anyone is close enough to their existing system,
Yeah.
because as you and I
yeah.
know, right, having your own septic system
Yeah.
is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But it's really from what I see, it's really a block was a block to actual any significant development. That's
Yeah.
not a home, that's which is would still be an obstacle that most people wouldn't like. But if you want a
Yeah.
big development, it would be pretty significant.
And the town is obviously where the development's happening, and hard to picture much more development in the city. And again, of course, Sean takes over with St. Albans Town having now supplanted St. Albans City as the biggest population place in Franklin County. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
the town is now number one. And I happened to think of this yesterday, the Ben and Jerry's plant, and I guess there's work, is it a biomass facility that's being built next to Ben and Jerry's?
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm sure I won't go farther than that, but that's under construction now.
I don't know that they've broken ground yet.
Yeah.
Maybe
I know,
not
I was out there
Right.
about a month ago,
right.
Yeah,
and I saw stuff out there. I didn't see that ground been broken.
so it sounds like
Yeah.
close anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's certainly on the horizon.
Boy, I'm just struck by the Ben and Jerry's plant. Ice cream that I happen to like. I don't tend to buy it. It's not the cheapest ice cream. But I'm just struck by how little attention the Ben and Jerry's plant in St. Albans Town gets. Of course, Waterbury gets all the
Mhm.
attention
Right.
with the tourist
Mm-hmm.
place and, maybe a better location. But correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking the St. Albans Town Ben and Jerry's plant is their biggkind manufacturing plant.
Mhm.
I mean, in the world, isn't that their
Yeah.
biggest plant?
I think,
Yeah,
this is where all the work gets done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of feel
Yeah,
like
and
that's
I've
our
had-
job too.
And I've had friends who've worked there. I'm sorry they're not there because they would get their
Yeah.
3 pints a day. And with
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
one of my former tenants, I would get a hunk of that ice cream. But
Yeah. Yeah.
Scooty's gone on to other things at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm just struck by, it
Mhm.
seems like that plant should somehow get a lot more attention. But
Yeah.
anyway.
It's I think somebody told me there's anywhere across the country, if you have, a pint of Ben and Jerry's, that there's a very high likelihood
Mhm.
that
It's
it came out of
it's
St.
out of St.
Albans.
Albans Town.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway. So Sean, hiring you as an economic component seemed to be
Mm-hmm.
a fairly important part of that. Any
Yeah.
big economic news you can throw at us today?
Well, no, not yet.
Yeah.
I'd love to say yeah, but actually a big, now that the affiliation fee's behind us, the water sewer is still, if we want any development, that's top of
Yeah.
the list as a new obstacle, a lack of infrastructure. You're not going to get a company or a big multi-use development
Yeah.
if they have to build a giant septic tank or well. It's just not considered a modern environment for building. So
There is still some more room in the St. Albans Town Industrial Park, is there?
Mhm.
Is there not?
There
absolutely,
is.
yeah. There's depending on how you look at the sites or break them up.
Yeah.
There's still about 90 acres, I think,
Really?
of undeveloped land back there.
Interesting.
I met with Tim out there, I say a month ago. I don't know. It's been a fast 3 months.
Yeah.
It was recently, I guess. So we walked the property and got to lay the land
Yeah.
and see what we can do.
Anyway,
So it is
big
exciting.
big part of the town that probably doesn't get the attention. I'm so used to people over the years around here saying,
Mhm.
"Gee, what a drag! Everybody has to go to, Chittenden County," and there's still a
Yeah.
ton of people I know. For Mayor Tim Murphy, Franklin County Industrial Development Corp. I think. I think the big thing is some of the commuters to convince some of the commuters to stay
Mhm.
around here.
Mm-hmm. And the housing, lack of housing is also a
Housing,
big.
right.
Yeah.
There's building some, but it's still rough.
Yeah,
Still have a
no,
housing crunch.
in apartment buildings outside of a townhome or outside of a, single family home, which is we'll take all of it.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. But if we could get a genuine apartment building mixed use, I think that would be a huge help to not only recruiting companies but workers and they don't have to travel to Chittenden or up north, and they could still live here and stay here. That's the kind of the low-hanging fruit, I guess, of folks that, okay, they live here, together in a building, and walkability is another big component to, in my view, to economic development. And we're actually working on a bunch of sidewalks and health paths as well to connect. The southern portion of the health path is going from the complex up to,
Hardak?
yes. Thank you. I was trying to do the map in my head. And there's going to be a northern portion that hopefully we connect to the river trail, the Masiqua.
Wow.
So it's that's a big part of with what I would consider a modern developed community is the ability to be outside and also walk from the complex to downtown to the bay. It's a long walk, but or bicycle. The fact that people. The possibility is a big thing for a lot of younger folks.
Yeah, but one of the saddest stories going back decades here when I think the city actually came up with the money for a rec path bike path from the city to St. Albans Bay. I think they actually had the money, but couldn't convince, I think, a few landowners along the way to pull it off. I think my old radio boss, Dave Kimmel, took one of the last shots at that and couldn't quite pull it off. I guess I'm sorry they couldn't have done some of it, but didn't happen.
Yeah.
And of course, town voters a few years ago rejected. I think there was money at town meeting for the rec path from Satec out to Collins Purley. I think was that a ballot item? And
I don't remember that being a ballot
maybe
item,
not a ballot item.
but I know that we did a feasibility study, and the recommended option involved at that point we called it a surface level path, but people dubbed it the underground tunnel or something like that. It daylighted on both sides. People just had it in their mind that it was going to be crime infested area, and it just did not receive any support. So we stepped back, tried to figure out why that option didn't work. Perceptions are important. People felt they wanted to be heard. They were heard, but it just put everything on pause. And now we're doing that feasibility study to figure out the best way to get from the complex to Hardack. Because those of us that drive that road see people walking and biking and running on it all the time, and it's fairly unsafe. I mean, it's a fast, busy road.
Yeah.
So, and there's some right-of-ways, even on Sam Smith's property in that open field, for a path. As a developer, he sees the value in having a multi-use path there, so. And the state is coming and taking another run at Exit 19 renovations,
really?
updates, and so we're asking them, we've been out front with it, Dave Allerton and I, and now Sean, about wanting some sort of pedestrian crossing there that's safe. If you're going to do a pretty substantial upgrade to that intersection, it should include some safe pedestrian crossings.
Sounds like it. And I'm sure the restaurant that's been talked about by Exit 18 going back, 10, 15, I'm sure that's coming in.
It was a long time, yeah.
Geez, what do I know about the restaurant business? Nothing except how tough it is, but
Yeah.
gee, it seems like not a bad place for a restaurant. Collins Purley, Exit 18, St. Albans actually increasing in population in the town anyway, but I guess there was wasn't there a Denny's rumor for a while? Is that just
there were a lot of rumors.
Yeah, there was a lot of
Plenty of
rumors,
rumors.
but, even the lots in front of Walmart, Jeff Davis had permitted.
Good point. That was and
they-
the expectation that there'd be a
Yeah.
Home Depot or
I think
something
some of us
out
wanted
there.
an Applebee's or an Outback or something,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
nothing. No murmurs of that either
Yeah.
in the zoning office.
Is
So-
That's tough too, because I've been part of maybe technically two retail restaurant recruitment processes.
Yeah.
Because it's honestly kind of seen as a waste of time, because
Is that
usually
right?
if you're recruiting
Yeah.
a company, like they have the team, they've got the money, they know where they're going next.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of seen as you lose leverage by saying, all right, we have this property, please come. And if they wanted to be there, prevailing
Right.
sentiment is that they'll be there.
Well, St. Albans Town doing fairly well. I mean, Swanton, of course, would kill for another kind of downtown restaurant.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the mayor. I think I caught did I just call our fine mayor? I think I might have confused him with my good friend in Montgomery, Tim Murphy. Did I just
Yeah, he
call the
said
mayor?
Tim.
Sorry,
Tim answers to anything,
Mayor,
though.
Mayor,
He's fine.
Mayor Tim Smith for
Yes.
the record.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think I screwed up years ago in a show, the St. Albans police chiefs. I managed to, call Morris Levesque, Morris Montcalm.
Oh,
Going
well.
back to a Georgia, you remember, former Georgia selectman, I think. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, Mayor. It's Mayor Tim Smith with Mayor of St. Albans with all the buckos again. For the record, blows my mind.
Yeah.
They cut down the city council from their $10 a month to nothing. Mention that to some people. Yeah, Mayor of St. Albans makes nothing. Hopefully, you're doing a little better than that in the town.
Yes.
We are,
you.
and actually, I was just talking to Marie Bissett about that. I said at a Rotary meeting, I said, I think you should reinstate some stipends for your council
Yeah,
and
it's
boards. If anything, I
it's
think it can
insane.
be a barrier for young parents.
Sure.
Not that they have a ton of time, but
Yeah.
if they have to get daycare or pay for some other thing because someone has to come and watch their
Sure.
kids.
Oh wow.
No, I think it's
didn't know that.
insane. They get nothing.
They get
Wow.
nothing.
They get
Our
nothing.
select board gets an impressive
They get a few.
$750 each,
And
which
the chair gets a
Chair
few
gets
more
a
bucks.
yeah,
It's 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's okay, you know, we
I
asked
think
them to
it's
do it.
totally okay.
Ton
I
of
think you
work.
could, I
Yeah.
think you do better than that, but I think it's insane.
Right.
These folks get nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure a ton of people in the city would join me with that.
yeah. The last
know.
one
Anyway, how
Patrick
are we
County
doing
got
with
a
the
whole lot.
old town hall? Any news to report? You getting anywhere finding a future for the former St. Albans Town Hall? Sean?
Yes, actually, and pretty recently there's been an uptick
Yeah.
of significant interest. Shown it quite a few times,
Huh.
but and I've extended the deadline off of September 1st, and really largely because of there's been a group that has approached me and the town. We actually toured it.
So a deadline for
Yeah.
RFPs or something? Or?
Yeah. The one I put out,
Request
they
for
called it like a
proposals?
business opportunity, but it's essentially an RFP. Was June? It was around July 1st or so, and that deadline was September 1st for proposals. But but even on it says we reserve the right to extend it, the deadline, because
But
obviously we want
But
something.
you're getting some interest, huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited actually about this last group. I think they've expressed the most interest, and also with some significant ideas about how to make it a community asset again. And so I'm pretty excited. I can't say how much more than that. I know it's a teaser,
Yeah,
but it's certainly trending in the right direction. Mm-hmm.
that's good. And what about the old Public Works garage site on Lake Champlain? Any more thoughts? I've been hearing maybe a boat access, at least for kayaks, but anything?
Well, yeah, and I guess even looked into I'm saying we, but
I get
before
it.
my time, yeah.
That's all right.
They've even quoted dredging out, so it could be more than
Yeah.
just kayaks. But we just got bids in, and we're reviewing proposals right now for a master plan of that site. So it's
Oh.
feasibility, potential uses, all that. So
And the soil issue, was that not as bad as you thought it might be?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, and we got a grant for that, right? So
Mhm.
I think we got a
Really?
grant to study feasibility, what options we have there. I mean, the most
Huh.
popular is a boat launch, but we did test the soil. We had some mild contamination, monitoring wells for a little
Huh.
bit, but according to the results from a qualified firm, we're good to go, and we could close those monitoring wells. So despite what
Huh.
rumors had gone around that this was some sort of brownfield site, it was not that nasty. I know Mobil Oil or Exxon, the company before
No.
them, had some storage tanks
Easy
there.
to picture the old storage tanks, yeah.
Yes,
wow.
right, but it's fine. I mean, I don't know that I would want to put a community garden there for
Yeah.
vegetables,
Yeah,
but short of that,
Depends on the
right?
the
There's
use
a
of the
lot
farm.
of good use there, and I think I'm saying we because I have no control over that
It's still
anymore,
we.
'cause I
Yeah.
can't
Still
stop.
we. Yeah,
Um,
still we.
But I think that the idea is to take down that orange building, and possibly even the salt shed ultimately.
Huh.
But,
Yeah, we'll
and
see.
it's getting prettier every day, we
yeah.
trying to be good neighbors in that area,
Mhm.
and not let it get cluttered. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's our goal.
It's exciting though, because that's kind of part of. We're going to go after another grant too, for a master plan revision, really, of the whole village center district. So that's obviously going to be one site in the district, but also, essentially do a whole master plan for that whole
Yeah.
Bay Area. So that's it's all these things take a whole lot of
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think some people, no matter where I've been, they hear something and an idea, and I kind of have to just reiterate every time, like, hey, this is going to take years. Like, this is and one
Intentionally
step at a
so.
time.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's better. It gives people that opportunity, although occasionally people will still come forward and say, this was too sudden, I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
That's a default response that I'd really like people to stop using if I
Yeah.
could dream. Because, like with the town hall, we'd been studying that for a while.
Yeah.
When we finally asked people to support the plans and buying the land, and then at town meeting day,
Of course, St. Albans Bay got strong support to keep it in the Bay
they
Area, I
did,
guess.
they did, so we listened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it might have ended up elsewhere? Had you not put that to a vote, or had their, feelings not been so strong? Carrie, do you think?
I
mean, it's
think
not
so.
exactly in the center of the town, but I love the Bay.
No, I get it. I love the Bay as well, but I also thought, I was on an earlier study committee that had identified a different location,
Yeah.
and I thought that other location would have worked well if
Yeah.
not even better. But hey, this
Yeah.
is where we're at.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful 13,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
The community is slowly realizing they can use a few of the rooms, the meeting rooms.
And it sounds like you've had some decent
Yeah.
crowds, I guess, for the stormwater issue, and actually another,
Yeah.
the juvenile,
And the prison
whatever the
one,
state
yeah.
calls it, the
Mhm.
juvenile detention facility that the state was hoping to convince the town to locate at the, by the Northwest State
Mhm.
Correctional Facility. Sounds like,
Yeah.
from an earlier interview with Brian Deloria, the town select board chair, I guess the state at the moment has backed off that. Any new news to report on that? Has that issue gone away for good, or no? It's gone away for now?
I would love to say yes to
Yeah.
that, but it's that's where we're at still. I think it's
But the
Yeah,
state has
dare I say
backed
it.
off for the moment anyway?
Gone
at least
away
for the
now.
moment, yeah.
Gone away for now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had
Because that's
discussions about it.
pretty hot issue. I mean, understandably.
It was,
I go
yes.
back long enough to, again,
Yeah.
of course, the prison, the most intense,
Mhm.
hardcore prison in the state,
Yeah.
started, of course, as a
As a
juvenile offenders facility.
Yeah.
I mean, we had just installed our new AV equipment, and in that meeting room, which we couldn't have accommodated in the old building, we had almost
Right.
50 people at
Wow.
that meeting
Yeah.
for
Wow.
the prison. They were respectful.
I heard I was out of town, I think. I heard
So-
my good friends, the Yendos, were there
Yes.
in
Yeah,
force,
they
I'm
lived right
sure.
across the
Right.
street, and they had some very salient points to make. So
Yeah.
it was great to have that facility to be able to let everyone
Yeah,
speak, not be uncomfortable. There's public
Yeah.
restrooms. I mean, all that infrastructure we didn't have before.
yeah.
The room worked for a while, but we were
Yeah.
growing out of it.
That was my first meeting.
That
It was
That
the prison
was.
Is
one.
that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
It was
wow.
virtually, but yeah.
Were you wondering a little bit, boy, be careful what I wish for after that meeting, or
I
not
was like,
too
well,
much?
I was like, well, I've never worked with prison before, so I guess I'll have to rip the Band-Aid on that. But
Well, and we usually get a handful of people at our meetings. We're
Right.
lucky if we get 3 people at our meetings.
I mean, that's typical, just a few
it's usually
people
the same
for.
4 or 5.
So I don't know. I'm glad he still showed up because, I mean, there was 50 people in that room.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because I
So-
couldn't see the rest of the room.
And the stormwater issue got a pretty good crowd not too long
It
ago,
did.
did it not?
Yep.
So
Not
can
like
you-
the prison one, but yeah.
Can you give me
Right.
just a short, again, sounds like I've never had a great handle on this issue, but the state just trying to get, just every community in the state, does everybody have a stormwater issue, or?
Well, I would argue that everybody has stormwater issues,
Yeah,
Mhm.
but
I guess every
there's-
municipality, I should say.
Yeah, there's only, I think we're one of 12 to 14 MS4 communities.
Huh.
So that kind of brings some mandates that the state has basically set for us to hit by 2036.
And the overall goal by the state is, again, trying to reduce the amount of phosphorus getting into Lake Champlain. Is that the big goal
Well, I mean,
here?
I think you can back up. It's a federal law
Really?
that the state pushed back on for a number of decades, but
Hmm.
finally acquiesced and said, because of penalties, EPA, state, town, we're at the bottom of that hill.
Huh. Really?
And I think you touched on it in the beginning unintentionally. Most people do not understand stormwater. They just don't. They understand that the rain falls, and after
Yeah.
that, they couldn't care less how
Yeah.
we take care of our roads and our ditches and our stormwater ponds.
Yeah,
And so there's a lot of misconceptions out there with why we started a stormwater utility.
Yeah.
And I guess I would like to get on my soapbox because I very much believe in stormwater. Anyone who gets rain drops in their yard or their business has stormwater.
yeah.
And paying for it in the general fund inadvertently puts more pressure on those property taxpayers. Having a utility spreads it out more fairly because you then have all of the nonprofits, churches, schools,
Right.
they're paying stormwater fees.
And the town does now have a stormwater utility.
We do, and it's a more
As
fair
does the
way.
city, as a
Correct.
longtime
Mhm.
city
Yep.
resident, yeah, something I'm paying for, of course,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'll call it the unfortunate narrative of the stormwater situation in Vermont is that it's focused on this phosphorus issue.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have gotten lost on that. You know, they see the number, it's only going to lower X amount.
Yeah.
You know, is it really going to save the lake, that type of thing? And, you know, I've been in other communities before, and none of them had lakes to save. None of them had, anything like that. So it's a public, I consider it a public good.
Yet they still
Um,
had stormwater issues. is
Still,
what
yep,
you're saying.
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah, and a stormwater fee. So it's
Yeah.
one of those things where everybody pays in a little bit, And, it might not be a project in your neighborhood,
Yeah.
but you have to do it one at a time, and not necessarily for the phosphorus, in my view, or it'll help the lake and help the phosphorus, but it's really about, the quality of life.
Are you working with the city? Is the town working with the city at all? I mean, the city
Mhm.
has obviously the same issue.
Well, we have a shared, like, when we were both designated stormwater impaired, it was 2012. It was my
Hmm.
first year working for the town. I had no prior
Really?
knowledge of stormwater. So there was a very steep learning curve because they
Huh.
love to use acronyms. But
Yeah.
the city and town joined a regional stormwater education program.
Wow.
We formed it with Northwest Regional Planning. So
Yeah.
it was, the acronym there is an RCEP. So we were required, in one of the six, I don't even remember what they call them anymore, but measures that we had to do, one of them was to provide stormwater education. And we thought this would be a scalable model so that we would start it, but as other communities joined and were required to do so, they would join the stormwater education
Hmm.
program. They haven't done so yet because the state has they've slowed down a little too, forcing some of these things, but we are required to do that. It works pretty seamless, working with the city on that. And we also, despite what used to happen, I think, or what people thought happened, the town works with the city on even cleaning out direct inlet culverts, sediment. We have to do that periodically and report on it, so. And at one point, we talked about sharing a staff. We haven't done that yet.
And in fact, the town had your official, whoever was in charge of stormwater person, sounds like she did a good job and left for another job.
Yes,
Now you
she
have
did.
You have a new
We do.
person in charge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a big job. That's a full-time, that's a real job.
It really is.
huh?
I know that people were debating whether or not it was accurate, but that stormwater position is kind of like what we do. It's a generalist in stormwater. They help projects move forward,
Hmm.
help with our annual required reporting, which is kind of extensive. Over the last 10 years, we have periodically signed up and promised the state we would do certain things for stormwater.
So what was the big issue that came up at the fairly recent meeting that got a good crowd? People just unhappy about another mandate coming down, or what was the biggest?
Oh, the special stormwater meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it essentially became just another educational thing. I actually felt a little bad for the folks from the state that came, because their staff, and they're great, and they've been great to work with
Yeah.
outside of that meeting.
Yeah.
But I think there might have been, maybe some unrealistic expectations about answers we were going to get, or
Well, it sounds like the state's had a cup between that and the juvenile facility. But it sounds like,
Yeah.
not sure you're going to be seeing state people too happy to come to St. Albans Town for a
Right,
while.
that's what I was thinking. They're gonna be like, "Oh, busy. So sorry."
yeah. But I think either way, we're going to have to move forward with it.
Were some townspeople saying, hey, forget this, why are we even dealing with that, or
Yep.
different viewpoints? I'm sure
Yeah, I
that
think
probably.
they forget that, I think we did, Brendan had done an informal analysis of if we didn't have a utility, then each property taxpayer would probably 6 times the annual residential fee. So instead of $50 for your home,
Really?
your bill might be over $300.
Really?
Because you're not asking the churches or the schools, any other nonprofit, to help pay the bills that they should pay. Because if I look around this community, it's not only parking lots, but there's huge parking lots at all those facilities. A lot of people just have a couple car widths wide of a driveway, so it's a more fair way to pay for stormwater. But people kind of, I love to talk about municipal budgeting, and I know it's boring, but
That's
people don't.
pretty important thing.
It is very important, and people don't really get too excited about stormwater
But it's also,
education.
and also, there was talk of cutting it or having a fee.
Right.
But, if we were to do that, it would really handcuff. Like, we're in a great place fiscally, but it would really handcuff. You're talking $500,000 a year we have to take away from other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and it's a relatively new tax, I believe, right? So
It is.
there's always going to be pushback and resistance to any new thing like that. I'm just hopeful that we can keep it going, and people will see the results of why we're doing it. Because being this early into the fee, we haven't done a project with it yet, because it's been, 2 years, I think?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Huh.
so, which is no time at all. And we have 2 projects in the bullpen, as I'll call it. So we're right about ready to start doing it. But it would really, really handcuff us if that fee was removed.
Gary, as you depart, being the longtime town, you feel the town's in pretty good shape? You feeling
I
pretty
do.
pretty good about?
Yeah,
Hope so.
I feel great. I mean, I feel, I pushed pretty hard when I first got there to try to do some of the backstory work. I don't even know what to really
Huh.
call it. You know, the town is financially, fiscally conservative,
Yeah.
but we redid a number of our ordinances and like our bylaws and our town plan, impact fees, capital planning was done. So we got a lot of our affairs in order. And then luckily, and you know, in public service, you can lose support in a heartbeat, but we got 2 major infrastructure updates done that had been needed. The town had needed that for a number of years.
As
so.
in Town Hall and new PW
Yeah,
garage.
new garage, that's an 18,000 square foot building that's
Yeah.
certainly sized appropriately, that the town should need another one for some time.
Yeah.
And the town hall itself also was built with some expansion
And I
possibilities.
guess we should note, again, both paid for without taxpayer money,
Correct.
both LOT money,
Mhm.
local option tax money.
Right, which in essence, I think people forget this, but that saves tax dollars, right? They didn't tack it onto our tax bill.
Right.
We paid cash, so there's no loan fees, there's no interest due.
I guess for the record,
Yeah.
people are paying, they are paying some money
Yeah.
to
They
still
are
support
paying,
that. But,
yes, we didn't, but, and so we
What's
did
the-
take one
yeah.
short-term note, but that's gonna be paid off within, I think, 8 years.
Well, do you know the breakdown for the LOT money the town gets? How much of that is from town residents and outside town residents?
Well, we had Jeff Carr, an economist,
The
come in
economist.
initially to do an analysis. He had roughly said, I thought it was between 60 and 70% of the local option tax is from out of town.
Really, from out of
um,
town?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And of course, the city, after the town, a few years after, did the same thing. And
Right.
Swanton, I talked to the good folks in Swanton Town, Earl Fournier, the
Mhm.
select board chair, and they're giving it some thought. They've got, of course, their big rec center, community center
Mhm.
that they're working on, but I think they're giving it maybe a little thought. But that seemed like a pretty good way to go to you.
I think it is. I mean, Williston led that charge,
Yeah, right?
but for the same reason we needed it. A lot of people visit
Yeah.
St. Albans Town and St. Albans City,
Yeah,
and we have to have the services. We have to pay for those services, police, fire, ambulance. So this helps level the playing field a little bit.
yeah.
And we're currently getting over $1 million a year.
Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
substantial.
Wow.
Should get over 1.1 this year.
Interesting. And there's still money, aside from what you're paying for the PW
Mhm.
garage and the town
Mhm.
hall, there's still some extra money in there. Any more of that money targeted at this point, Sean?
Oh,
I'm sure you probably have a few thoughts on what you could use it for, huh?
Yeah. Still pretty much well, besides the town hall, depending on how that goes, water as well. It's really, I kind of have like a community land banking type of vision and also approach. So that, we could potentially use funds to do that and, really be able to kind of set a path for whatever vision we agree upon, for both the village and also kind of the growth centers, both north and south.
Yeah,
I mean, at budget time last year, the board supported using a couple $100,000 to develop sidewalks.
Yep.
So as you'll
Right.
recall,
Right.
10 or 15 years ago, the town select board, a number of them were not supporting any bike and pedestrian infrastructure.
Now we've got a whole bunch of them.
And now we have 3 in the works. We're
Yeah.
actively,
Just put it out to bid.
yeah,
for,
developing the Route 7.
Route
Is that
7.
the one you're talking about?
yeah.
So to connect where the city's sidewalk stops up to Prospect Hill neighborhood and the
Hmm.
one on Harbor View as well.
Yeah.
And one that would go from the town hall to the Bay Dock.
Yep.
That one's a little more complicated. Obviously, it's pretty congested there in a couple spots.
Yeah,
So there's some planning being done for that. But that's a huge
Yeah.
deal because
Huh.
it's funding is always the thing that stops it, right? So
yeah.
And that's
We're
our
gonna-
crown jewel too, is the bay.
it's beautiful,
so-
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Boy, high water, of course, I'm loving the flooding. I mean,
mhm.
every day you see flooding. I mean, boy, downtown Montpelier, be curious to see how it even comes back. But as someone who has a couple kayaks down by Killcare,
Yeah.
I'm loving a high water level on the lake. I'm still at 98 feet plus. This makes that a little easier, but gee, what a tough situation.
Yeah, the people with motorboats aren't loving it so much. There's a lot of debris in the lake.
In fact, that's right, and not to mention the water quality. So I'm hardly claiming it's a good thing in general, but
Yeah.
Our
in
beaches
general,
are
I
still
like a
closed.
higher water level. But
Right.
Yeah.
in fact, actually, I was kayaking yesterday. Again, we're taping the show on August 29, and there was just kind of a slime. I was just going along the west shore of Hathaway Point, and just kind of a weird slime to the water yesterday.
Yeah.
But anyway, tough
I'll be
situation.
I'll be in Montpelier in a few weeks, so I haven't been there in person yet, so I'm gonna be curious to see how they've.
Gee, what a tough
rebound.
situation. And I guess Johnson, I mean, some of these community, Cambridge and Johnson, I guess, lost its wastewater plant. God,
Yes. And that's really
why?
sad because, I've said this before, there aren't really municipal Amazon stores, right?
Yeah.
There isn't a store where you can just go, I need a new sewer plant.
Right.
It takes a good deal of time.
Right.
It's taking almost 3 years for fire trucks and plow trucks, so
Wow.
it's tough.
Tough
It's out
situation.
there. It is.
In the days I can remember, I may be going back to circa maybe 1980s when the city had a big, in hopes that it would bring St. Albans Bay water quality, a huge improvement, which of course didn't happen, but a big upgrade of the sewer plant. And in those and the city voters passed it overwhelmingly. But in the good old days, I think the feds were picking up, 75% of the cost back then.
Oh, yeah.
Those days
That's what I
are
heard, yeah.
pretty much long gone.
Correct.
So looking back, 11 years, top accomplishments, and again, realizing you had plenty of other folks working, but I mean, the St. Albans City-Town Agreement, that's got to be near the top of the list.
That's right up there on the top. I would say
Yeah.
being able to finish a few buildings that were sorely needed without putting the town into debt was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I feel that the team that we built there, though, was also pretty important. We look at buildings and equipment, but
Yeah.
our assets are really our employees and how well they work together, and we have a great cohesive team that should support Sean going forward, and that makes me feel a lot less concerned. As a manager, you just you want everything to be set so that your handoff is clean, and it's not always. But this
How
one
many
feels good.
employees at this point does the
Full
town?
time, about 30, low 30s.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was that when you started? You remember? I can only assume not that many.
Not that many, but in the last
drastically
5
different.
years, right? In the last 5 years, we've added a few positions, and we frankly needed to. We were undersized. We had an HR firm look at our staffing even like 8 years ago, and
Really?
despite the rub between a select board and a manager, which always happens,
Yeah.
I was pushing for a few more staff members, and they had supported that. So
Yeah.
we're not going crazy. We're not trying to fill that building,
Yeah.
but we do need we needed a couple more people.
Yeah. Biggest disappointment? I'm sure there were some disappointments obviously along the way. Anything kind of jumping out there?
No, I mean, it's so busy, you move on to the next thing. I mean, personally, I got a lot of personal growth out of working there, just as much as I gave. I mean, I gave the town a lot of my attention, but I learned a lot in the meantime. So I hope to be able to share that with other municipalities, and I hope I can have that balance. That's a little bit more time off and a little
That's
bit
right.
of extra
Have you gotten
work.
any bites? Are you actively seeking some part-time work now, Carrie?
I am. I have talked to VLCT and a
Yeah.
couple other town managers. Yeah,
I got to think you'll find some work out there.
I will.
Hopefully not too
Hopefully
much
not
from
too
your point
much.
of view.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
yeah.
So Sean, you're faring again, couple 3 months into the job, feeling pretty comfortable, getting to know the town better by the day, I
Yeah.
expect. But
Yeah.
any big surprises with the job at this point?
No, not really. No.
Yeah.
I think we've joked about it. Like I consider myself a local government nerd. I think you say a muni nerd in municipal government. So I genuinely love working in the public.
Yeah.
The issues, have a lot of overlap no matter where you go. So the big learning curve outside of like a stormwater thing is just getting to know the people, getting to know the board, seeing what makes people tick, trying to feel out when you can maybe push the envelope on something, or when it's time to, push a project forward, or take a risk, that type of thing. So
Yeah. You getting much reaction? You get calls from people? Or are there just some residents who will try to track you down and
Oh, yeah.
talk? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I take my dogs. I'm not even gonna say it on here. I take my dogs somewhere every day for park. Well, I go to different parks and take my dogs for walks after work. And
Do you live in the town?
technically, I
close?
think if I take a step off my property, I'm into the town.
So close.
I'm right on
close.
Very close.
Yeah, yeah.
No, really. Interesting.
But yeah, literally one step. So it's like that. But and I'll often have citizens, now that my face has been out there, stop me, and and I'll end up leaving the park when it's no longer sunny. So, but yeah, and again, I think if you don't enjoy that part of it, you're probably not gonna last very long. Period. And I don't think I'd be where I'm at now if I didn't enjoy that part, which can also admittedly be, it's hard to navigate that sometimes, because you work so hard on something, you're like, wait, what did you hear? And
Right.
and so the rumor mill's like that in any place. But overall, I think coming here, the budget where it is, the staff is wonderful. Thankfully, they built this building, and I didn't have to work in the old town hall.
Well, yeah, it sounds like your timing, Sean, was pretty good.
Yeah,
With the
I'll
new
take it.
town hall with the city-town agreement. It sounds like
Yeah.
Gary should have been so lucky years ago, maybe. But anyway,
I think it all happens for a reason. I mean, think he can take more steps forward in
Yeah.
areas maybe that I wasn't an
Yeah.
expert in. So
Good foundation.
yeah, it
So thank you.
all happens. And
down to a couple minutes. Anything you want to spend a minute or so on that we haven't talked about? And Sean, same thing. If we, I'm sure there are other issues out there that we haven't touched on. But
I don't have a lot to say. I guess I
Yeah.
would like to say thank you to the residents for allowing me to
Yeah.
work here for this long.
yeah, well, 11 years. That's a long time.
It
And
is. That's
in
a very
almost
long
20
time.
years, I'm still sane. I'm going to leave while I still can,
Yeah.
smiling and I'm in my sanity.
Yeah, we talked off here, obviously, just
Yeah.
so tough situation, losing your husband.
Oh, yeah. That was tough.
Told you, just loved talking politics with him,
he
and
did.
I was struck by how seriously he took his job as one of our assistant side judges.
Funny to me now, but
Yeah.
he used to love to talk about municipal stuff, and
Yeah.
right before bed.
Of course, was a former select board member
midnight.
also.
I'm like, I don't really want to talk about
Yeah.
select board stuff right now, if you can imagine it. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
real tough. He did a great job.
Yeah. Very good things.
Sean, I'm going to give you the last minute here. So what's on your plate? All kinds of stuff. Anything you're really focusing on today, say, for example?
Well, I guess first and foremost, well, not first and foremost, but I make sure I don't forget that we have a ribbon cutting for the new trail system.
No, really.
So in the town forest, and that's on September 17th.
September 17th.
That's Sunday from 2 to 4.
Great.
So big shout out
So
to
a
Andy
new trail
Crossman.
system up there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got to get up.
Yeah.
I got to get up there.
Yeah. So that'll be a good event. There'll be plenty of parking and a pretty good crowd. So that'll be excellent. And the rest of it, I'd just like to thank Carrie for what she's done, and handed me the keys in a fairly seamless transition. So
Very
it's,
good.
Very
And
thankful.
on that optimistic note, and I suspect you folks may just talk once in a while in the future too.
Just a little bit.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, many thanks to Carrie Johnson, the former St. Albans Town Manager, and her successor, Sean Atkins, St. Albans' new town manager. Thanks for the time, and I'm looking forward to interviewing soon St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith, hopefully one of these days. And thanks to producer Paul Snyder for doing the hard work back there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We really appreciate you watching us here on Northwest Access TV. See you next time.